Okay, right, so now we're going to be reassembling the wheels. And the first thing I'm going to do is I've laid out all the varying parts for the front spindle as per the diagrams that, as I mentioned earlier, I blew them up for him. So I've just laid them out so they're exactly the same on the diagrams as they are on the table. One of the things that I've looked at though really is I've got the replacement bearings, which I've got from a local bearing supplier. I think they weren't very expensive. I think they're only about £5. So I've got some replacement bearings which I'm going to put in the when we get round to doing it. But one of the things that I've noticed, well, after everything's come through the sandblaster, when I've looked very closely at, I'll move it away a bit there. There's a lot of muck on these, so I want it all to be scrupulously clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spend a few minutes just using the good old Dremel again with the wire brush attachment, and just get the ins in there, right into the disc between the difficult parts to reach, and I'm just going to clean them up with the Dremel while I do it. So if you just bear with us. Just got some oil and crud in there. I'll take that off before I get in with the Dremel, because the last thing I want is any residue from the sandblaster anywhere near where there's bearings, because that could cause premature wear. And likewise on this one. I sprayed it with WD-40 when I put it all away for everything to go to the spray shop. So I'm just a matter really of just tidying up all the crap that's in there. So, a little bit boring there, just finishing off using the Dremel for cleaning the threads. And now, we might as well look towards doing the assembly. So one thing I'm going to use is high melting point grease, which is really mucky, as you can see. So I've got my gloves on because I don't want the crap all over me. I'm going to have a trial fit really, and see how things are on the hub, and then do it from there. So just bear with us. So we've come to the stage where we're going to put the spindles through the hubs. Now earlier I mentioned that I bottled out of putting the tyres on the wheel rims because I didn't want to chip the paint, and he asked the bloke down at the spray shop if he would do them for him because he volunteered. I asked him if he would let me know when he was going to do it so that I could film it. Unfortunately he rang me up to say he's done it, and I gathered he didn't really want to be filmed putting it on. But he's made an absolute superb job of getting the tyre, the inner tube and the rim tube onto the wheel, and he's blown them up and it's absolutely lovely. So I don't want to let him down, but I'm now going to start doing the putting the bearings on. Now, as I previously said, I've laid everything out on the bench, as you can see in the order of the book. And that's the side that we're going to be doing first. That's the side we're going to be doing first. There, I'm going to be doing that to put it all on. So I've laid it out over the top as per that. And it starts with this, but I'm not going to put that on because that's just a spacer bar and it's of no use at this particular time. But the first thing to put on is the bearing washer, which goes on there. Now what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and put a light smattering of grease on everything so that it just keeps it all nice and tidy, really. So I'm just putting some grease. This is high melting point grease, just to keep everything nice and lubricated. Dropped it there, and that's it. So you can see. So that's the first thing on. Make sure it goes home. Now the bearing, when we put the bearing on, the bearing will rest against that, and then the bearing's got like a little screw thing that goes on the top of it. So we come to the bearing. As I say, I bought the bearings from my local bearing shop. They weren't very expensive, and they're sealed bearings, which is slightly different from the old ones, because the old ones used to have like ball bearings and you'd have to rub grease in and one thing and another. But these have got a seal on them, but it's exactly the same on the outside. But the question is, you've got to get it home against that carrying washer that's on there. So I'm going to start banging it through, and I know that I'm happy to bang it through because the other side of the spindle down there is resting against my bench, so that's going to hold it still. But I need something to bray into it to keep it nice and straight. So good old sockets. They tell you can get a tool or whatever it is. So I've got two types of socket, and it's going to have to go through there all the way down. Well, a 24mm, there's not a lot of room left in relation to that. I've got to stop saying that. Or a 23mm, which is slightly wider. But of course what I will be braying on is the rim side of the bearing. So I'm going to work out which one would be best to distribute the weight of just tapping it in. And I'm going to try the 24 to start with and see if that takes it down, knocks the bearing down. And if it works, great, that's good. If it doesn't, then I'm going to have to go to the 23 and see how we do from that. But again, I'm just taking a little smattering of grease, just a little bit on it, just like that, to help it on its way as we tap it down. And the bearing, I need to make sure I get the bearing in square. So I've got one of these, I bought it from Halfords. It's full of things. It's a dead blow hammer, whatever that means. But I'll see if I can take the bearing in nice and steady. See if I can tap it home. Now, one of the things that my dad's mentioned to me when I used to do these before was to try and go around the edge of wherever it is that you're tapping in to try and make it go square. So that's what I'm trying to do. And little by little, seems it's going in. Just take off that excess grease. going to try getting rid of that, and I'm going to try something really old-fashioned, a hammer. And it's going in. Now I've got to be really careful because the inside of there has got some threads, and the last thing I want to do is to damage the threads, so I might change the bearing, the driver, to this, which is the 23mm socket, and see if that works. And it's going home, as you can see, little by little, and it's still spinning, so that's a bonus. And I suppose when you know that it's all the way home is when it meets flat with that washer that we've put on in there. So keep going. And it's going alright, so I'm just going to look to see if I can see if it's home or not. I think there's just a little gap, yeah, from what I can feel. I'll just try a bit more then. Still spinning alright. Feels about right. Just a little bit more. Well, that looks about right from there. So, the next thing that we have to do is put on the little threaded washer, which is there, because I'm looking at the bottom and it should be the top. So you can see it's got some threads. It's got two little indentations in there where you can tap it through, and it's a left-hand thread, but again, according to the manual, you're supposed to use some some BSA special tool, blah 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 blah. I haven't got one, so I'm going to use what everybody else uses, and that is a screwdriver. So let's get the threads going, and it's a left hand thread, which is, it goes the wrong way around. There we go, it's going on lovely at the moment, just a bit stiff. So here's my dead weight hammer, and let's see if we can just tap it home. And yes, I am anal. I have got a hammer through screwdriver it's designed to do that, so I'm not just tapping on a screwdriver head. And again, good old Halfords. And no, I'm not sponsored by Halfords, but it's the biggest tool place around here, and that's the one I use. lovely. So move that out of the way. So I've got that on, and it says number 13, and number 13 is a felt washer. So there's a felt washer. I suppose that's to pick up all the gunge that's there. But what I will do while I'm here is, yeah, I'll just put some a splodge of engine oil on it. Just to make sure. So we've got the bearing on, got the thing on, number 13, which is a felt retaining washer. Oh, good job I checked. That one. Yeah, look at that. Good job I checked. Ho, ho, ho. Felt retaining washer. And then number 12, which is the washer. So it goes on there. Right. And then number 11, felt retaining cup. Felt retaining cup. And then the brakes, according to that. So that's that side done then. I'll just put some engine oil on this washer. I'm trying to do it where it's not going to cause any. And the last thing I want is oil all over my new paintwork. A little bit more on that side. I'm just putting splodges of oil on there just to make it a little bit more catching dirt, because obviously that's what it's designed to do. So the next thing that goes on there, washer, felt washer, cap, and then it's a nut which is for the spindle. So the brakes. So should I do the brakes now or should I do them later? That's the question. That is the question. No, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to do the other side. So I'll flip the wheel over and going to try now and do the other side of the bearing. And one of the things that I tried to do was to just try the bearing retaining washer onto in the middle, and unfortunately it doesn't quite fit. And that's because I've got some paint overspray on the inside of there. I don't think the camera can pick it up, but I don't want any crud falling in onto the bearing. So I've got myself some toilet paper, tissue paper, toilet paper in lockdown. Shouldn't be wasting that. And I'll put it in there just to catch the worst. And then I've got myself a thin Stanley knife, that type of instrument, and I'm just going to take off. You can see it coming off now, can't you? The paint that's just been on the overspray. You want everything to be as quick as you can, as clean as you can. Oh, something just dropped off. There. So just clean it all up. Should have done this before. Never thought of looking, to be honest. And, it's my fault. Should have got it all nice and clean before I put the bearing in. So what I need is some wire wool or sandpaper. just to make sure. Try and get that clean. So once again, good old Dremel. Let's see if I can get rid of what's left on the inside. Okay, right, so having now cleaned up all the old paint in there, we're now going to drop in put the other bearing on and all the bits and pieces to bring it up to do it. But the first thing we need to do is to make sure that we put the bearing spacer in, and that will stop the bearing from going all the way down onto the falling all the way through. So the second thing then is to put the bearing on. So I'm just going to put a light smattering of grease on the outside of the bearing, just to help drive when I come to drive the bearing in, just to make sure it goes in a little bit easier. And there we go, that's it on. So which socket shall I use though? That's the question. Let me have a look. So what's this one? This is 24 and that's too big. Which is this one? That's 5/16 and that's too big. This is 23. Oh, and it's the 23 one again. So we take the bearing on the top, and I'll just give it a very, very quick touch. Just to begin to bite. There you go, it's just beginning to bite. And very much like we did with the other one, with the socket just on the edge of the bearing, and some light taps. And as you can see, it's beginning to go down quite nicely. I'm just bothered about that, making sure the spacer bar's in the middle, if we can get it there. So we'll just see it's a bit closer yet. And something to move the spacer bar. Yeah, it's still loose, so it's still not home all the way yet. Check. Still going home. It's going home now. How far off is it? It's about there. Just done it a touch too much. Last. However, nothing lost. Let's see if we can just push that over a little bit. Oh, look at that. Does that go through? Not on this side, it won't. I'm just having to square it up. You can't see, can you? I can't do it with the thing. Well, I'm just having a spot of difficulty here. So the distance piece is just slightly, oh look at that, it's coming through. Oh, look at that. Hey, done it. Well, how about that? Woohoo. Right, so that's got that home. And what I was worried about was that spacer bar, but that doesn't seem to cause it any problems. It begins to move, so yep, and it's loosened off nicely. So according to that, it has 27, which is a washer. Yep, that's just nice and flush as well there. Then it has that felt cap. Then it has that on top. And then it has the spindle and the nuts. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to put them on, because what I'm going to do now is make sure that that is nice and safe over there. And then what I will do is flip it over, and then let's do the brakes. So there we go. Yeah, hey.